All right, and we are live. Welcome to Late Night with Late Stage Degen. Here we are. We're talking about things, stories from around the world. We'll most likely be focusing on one per night and kind of seeing seeing how the format progresses from there. So, in general, if you're just joining, we're just kicking things off. We're really going to be focusing on global politics in the era of late stage capitalism. Here we are today. We are live. We're doing it. And tonight we have a pretty interesting story. And I'll be diving right in. We're going to be talking about the situation in Belarus. And, the first thing I have to say is with a lot of these stories, we're going to be diving into things from around the world. I'm not someone that lives in the areas that we'll be talking about. Maybe I've lived in some of them, but in general, I'm going to be commenting on just some of the media coverage, some of the politics, the history, and also just give a little bit of on the ground kind of context, interviews when we can. So that being said, let's dive right in. We're going to be talking about story here that was brought to my attention. Let's see if we can get this window actually functioning here. There we go. Actually, originally through Sidecar from the New Left Review, kind of diving into the woods between Poland and Belarus and the refugee crisis that is unfolding there. And kind of high level story. If you don't know, there's been active sanctions against Belarus, and Poland is also right on the border here and has taken actions as kind of the border between the EU and the rest of the scary world. And so they've been illegally, according to EU law, sending people back that are coming through Belarus without hearing their cases, as can be expected. And they've also increased the number of troops that they have at the border there. So they recently just sent 1,800 soldiers down. So first thing I want to do is we're going to watch an interview actually with the president of Belarus, who this is from 2 days ago now, 2 or 3 days ago, but it really just captures a lot of these types of interviews that happen with leaders who are totalitarian and fighting against the revolutionaries who are fighting for democracy there, often backed by the U.S., by U.S. money. And so we'll be kind of diving into some of those dynamics just a little bit here. Actually, before watching the video, I want to show you a few things. First thing is this picture with Joe Biden. This is in July 2021 with the opposition leader that is recognized by the US, the EU, and all these other countries as the actual leader that was not elected, but who was fighting for democracy within the country against Lukashenko. And I just wanted to start with this image because it's important to have context on, all of you watching will probably have knowledge of how this is done. We can see this in Venezuela and other countries, but of the world getting behind this opposition leader who was not elected, but who is fighting for human rights and democracy in the country. So what I wanted to bring up first here is also just a little bit, and we won't go into the full history of the region, but I wanted to just mention that Belarus is like one of the main ways that Russia gets their oil to the rest of the world. It's essentially one of the most important pipelines that supplies the world with oil. And the country has basically been in this tough situation where they're constantly negotiating between the U.S. and Russia as far as what they accept, what the fees that they're accepting from Russia, or that they have to pay for actually letting oil through and all these stuff. So there we go. I'm back. Cut off from Russia, which leads to major economic turmoil. They're getting sanctioned by the U.S. and there's essentially a proxy war type of situation going on here for control over the resources, with both Russia and the U.S. kind of creating a stranglehold on the local economy here. That's the first thing to note. Let's just dive in to watch an interview with, I'll comment on this from CNN.
Alexander Lukashenko is dismissing reports of human rights abuses since his disputed re-election last year. His government also being accused of funneling migrants into EU border states in retaliation over Western sanctions. Known as Europe's last dictator, he's led...
So that phrase, like known as Europe's last dictator, is also super common. If you look across, social media right now, this is, Belarus is trending, and here you can see again this phrase, the last dictator of Europe, will also fall. And so, in my commentary on this, I'm not saying that there aren't bad things happening there. I don't know too much about the struggle, but I do know about the U.S. intervening in these types of ways to take down, to influence and change administrations in countries. So that's just worth noting, that this phrase, you can see it basically all over the place, the last dictator in Europe, who's anti-democratic and oppressing his people and abusing activists. So I'll just keep watching here.
Led the nation for nearly 3 decades, and in an exclusive interview with CNN's Matthew Chance, Mr. Lukashenko says he has nothing to be sorry for.
Would you take this opportunity now to apologize to the people of Belarus for the human rights abuses that they've suffered at your hands?
No, I would not like to take this opportunity.
So of course, this is like super common framing with all these types of interviews with the other last dictators of certain regions in the world, where they essentially, whether it's BBC or CNN and whoever it is, just ask straight up, like, will you take responsibility for all this horrible stuff that's happening? And immediately, well, you'll see. We'll just keep playing.
If I ever would, I would do that through the Belarusian media. What would be the point of doing it on CNN? I don't think this is a relevant question, and in principle I have nothing to apologize for.
Well, you say you've got nothing to apologize for, but Human Rights Watch says multiple detainees have reported broken bones, broken teeth, brain injuries, skin wounds, electrical burns. Amnesty International speaks of detention centers.
The answer to this is pretty
becoming torture chambers where protesters were forced
telling.
to lie in the dirt, stripped naked, while police kicked and beat them with truncheons. You don't think that is worth apologizing for?
You know, we don't have a single detention center, as you say, like Guantanamo, or those bases that the United States and your country created in Eastern Europe. As regards our own detention center.
So this is, of course, also a common response in this situation, which is we'll replay the expression here from the CNN interviewer, but there's countless, let's just say there hasn't been any reporting on those types of horrific situations in a similar way from CNN about Guantanamo.
Where we keep those accused or those under investigation. They are no worse than in Britain or the United States. I can guarantee you that.
Nevertheless,
Hey, how's it going? I'm live streaming right now.
the violence over that period has left. Nevertheless, the violence over that period.
All right, let's go back and we're going to rewatch that
I can guarantee you that.
expression.
The violence over that period has left you, in the eyes of much of the international community, as